Well, our moms think we're funny.
Hey everyone, this is Turk182.
And I'm Acomi.
Hey Acomi, what's going on?
We just watched a really great movie.
Yes, we did. It's a movie that I've referenced lots of times, especially recently, and I figured it was about time that I actually sat you down and made you watch it. And it's funny because there's so many movies that like I want to show you that you even want to see, and it's always a matter of it's like finding the time when we get together to do recording, finding the time to fit one in. There's a lot of times we were like, okay, we're gonna do this next, and then next you know it's like it's too late, and it's like, oh well, we don't have time. I mean, we've been talking for over a year now about Boogie Nights. And I don't think we're going to watch it this weekend, but it's still,
Probably not.
I love Boogie Nights. Got a great cast, and there's
I think we've been talking about Rollerball for like 2 years.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Still haven't seen Rollerball.
I want to show everybody I meet Rollerball. I don't care if somebody bumps me in a store and I'm like asshole, and they're like fuck you, and I'm like I want you to see Rollerball. It's like I don't like you either, but I still want you to see it.
You're like the Jehovah's Witness of Rollerball.
Have you heard about the game? It's never supposed to be a game.
You have a moment to talk about Rollerball. But yeah, so tonight we saw Tombstone.
Yes, finally got a chance to see Tombstone. Such a beautiful movie. There's so many things that I could say, and we could talk about Tombstone that is, that other people have said and talked about, but I haven't.
Yeah. And, who needs their opinion? Ours is what matters.
Right, because it's our podcast. I mean,
exactly.
If we were on their podcast, then it would still be our opinion because we're on their podcast. That's what they had us on there for. It'd be like, if you didn't want my opinion, you shouldn't have invited me on here. It's like, if anyone objects these two people getting married, they're right here. Right? You asked, I'm saying. But yeah, Tombstone is an absolutely beautiful movie. And
phenomenal.
And I'm glad you enjoyed it. Of course, it's always risky when you show somebody a movie, even if it's one that most people say is a great movie. Is always that chance that someone's gonna be like, "Nah, I don't get it."
I told you that one friend of mine, when I showed him Old Boy, he didn't like it.
Yeah,
and it's like, how the hell do you not like Old Boy?
Yeah, I told you that recently, I've been, which I mentioned before on the podcast, that I've been convincing my mom to finally see certain movies and, got her to see Silence of the Lambs. I got her to watch even small things that aren't really that big, like Night of the Creeps. Watched Night of the Creeps. Watched Return of the Living Dead.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. I still can't get her to see American Werewolf in London. But because Wilford Brimley passed away, I was actually able to use that to convince her to see John Carpenter's The Thing.
All right.
And I knew it was going to be risky, and I knew that there was probably a chance that she wasn't going to like it, but she did, even with all the gruesome effects in it. And I think that she was actually impressed with the effects because they were practical.
Yeah.
But even still, I was going into expecting her to be like, no, that was gross. But no, she liked it. So.
Wow. Yeah. No, after showing my mom Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I can't talk her into to trying new movies. So.
But I was really happy that you like Tombstone because I think I know obviously it's not just me. Lots of people think it's a fantastic movie, but I absolutely love that movie from beginning to end. I love the way it ramps up. I mean, like the last 20, 30 minutes of the movie it's not straight action, but it's just like it's one just like adrenaline scene to the next, but not just like a Fast and Furious. It's still driving that story along, but it's this really kind of emotional like action scene that you're going through.
Like everything is swelling and increasing as it goes.
Yeah.
Me seeing this for the first time, I liked everything about the movie. I thought the writing was incredible. I thought it was very well written. The dialogue was spot on. The acting was perfect. It was well cast. And the cinematography was beautiful. There are beautiful shots in that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, they do things with the sky, and it's not like special effects. They're just like, oh, this is a good time of day to take this shot, and they fucking do it, and it's great.
Oh, yeah.
And even the soundtrack. I mean, typically I don't go in for like Western soundtracks, but like it was a very suiting soundtrack. And, I mean, I could see like downloading that and listening through that again.
It is good, yeah. I will say that, and it's not a drawback at all, but there are a lot, especially near the end, there are a lot of sunset scenes, you know, and I think it was maybe more of like an homage to Westerns, you know, the whole riding into the sunset.
Yeah.
But in this case, they were actually riding against the sunset, but there's a lot of just really beautiful sunset scenes. And I think when you're filming a movie, especially if you're filming out there in like in an area like that, that you're going to have those, and you can't really pass it up, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a female. I don't want to say female. It's going to sound sexist. But I was saying it's like a college kid in in his first photography class. He can't pass an empty swing set without taking a picture.
This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But yeah, no, like there was that one scene at the ranch after the actress's carriage leaves and the sky is just like pink,
yes,
all the way across, and oh my god, that's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, they do a really good job of setting it up, just building up the story, the characters, and getting the setting there. You know, obviously with a movie like this, you're always going to have the story is always going to direct you to what it wants you to, how it wants you to feel. So pretty much from the start, we don't like Wyatt Earp's wife. You know, we never see a good side of her. All we see is her from like burgeoning junkie to full-on junkie.
Yep.
and they close her story off by saying she died a junkie's death. I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. And there's no real sympathy given for it. No. Like at all.
But you know, then they start the same thing. They start off with the cowboys just being like, these guys are just awful. I think it's interesting that in the opening scene where we're introduced to the cowboys and they kill everybody at the church right after the wedding, you know, they killed the groom, and then a couple of them drag the bride, the newlywed, and off into the church.
Yep. And
you don't see what goes on, and not everybody, you know, goes into the church. The other ones could sit down there and, you know, eat the food. But you see that apparently it doesn't bother them. The only person that bothers is McMasters.
Yep.
But of course, you know, that's again the direction, the storytelling to say that, you know, here's a guy that's not fully on board. So when he turns later, you know, that it's not out of the blue.
Yeah, it's all good character development. Like, all the characters have good character development, and whether that is like a character having a change of heart, which we do see with McMasters, and we see with Wyatt. You know, he starts off wanting to basically take this pacifist route and say, you know, I just want to settle down, I want to get a job and get a family, and then he changes to, okay, now it's the day of reckoning. Now shit's getting real. So you have that kind of character development, but you also have characters who just more cement themselves in their archetype. So you have Ike, who is a coward, and he just increasingly ramps up his cowardice until he dies a coward's death.
He is such a piece of shit.
Oh, he's such a fucking cuck. Oh my god.
With the exception of the gunfight at OK, which is all Doc Holliday's fault. Yep. That's all Doc Holliday. Everything else is all Ike's fault. You know, pretty much. He's the one that pretty much starts it off. He's the one that keeps it going. He doesn't know how to shut his mouth, you know, and
that's the whole problem, is that Ike is that guy who, you know, you'll narrowly escape getting into a big fight, and then it'll be like, yeah, that's right, you better walk away.
Right.
It's like, that doesn't help. That makes literally everybody angry now.
Your first real introduction to Ike is at the Pharaoh table when he's like, good, cause law don't go around here. And he goes, cause law don't, it's like, and he's getting in his face. It's like, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know, we see exactly who you are.
So you are just that asshole.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so like I like that. I like that different characters have different types of character development. We've talked about this in other podcasts just because we're both enthusiasts for these types of stories. That, like, there is those two types of character development. A character either has to change or they have to cement themselves further in those roles. And just like with Doc Holliday, his whole thing from the word go is commitment. to Wyatt. He is his friend. He has that loyalty, this undying loyalty, and that does nothing but grow stronger. It doesn't stay stagnant. It goes stronger and stronger and stronger until the very last moment. And it's handled so well.
That's something we're going to have to talk about near the end is Doc and his character development, the writing of him, and his relationship to Wyatt.
Yeah. Oh, that could cover an entire podcast episode. It is amazing.
There are little things in there, the movie, which I think is a great. Not a lot of movies can really pull it off well. This one I think does, and it's where you just use little things to kind of tell the story or to tell like character's motivation. We talked about this when we were watching it, or kind of mentioned it when we were watching it. We'll talk about it, a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But it's the little things that Doc Holliday says that really cements his character, and really he says a sentence and it fleshes out it just kind of develops a whole part of who he is and his character.
Yeah. It says so much with so few words.
Right.
And, a lot of movie writing, and I mean, this is kind of the way I write with my comics, so I can't really criticize it, but a lot of movie writing really tends to spell things out. And, the example that's coming to my mind is when they introduce Han Solo in Star Wars. And so they're like, oh yeah, he's this famous smuggler. He did the Kessel Run in 15 parsecs or whatever. That whole thing, 12 parsecs. Okay, it's been a long ass time since I've seen Star Wars. So, I think the 15 parsecs is a Duck Dodgers reference, so that's where my mind is. But they kind of spell all this stuff out of here's what you need to know about this character. Here's gonna spell out his archetype. And so it kind of spells out in a few sentences what you need to expect out of that character. And you don't really see that with Tombstone. It's just that this character appears, you see them in action for a couple minutes, and that tells you everything. And then you get this one sentence statement from them, and it's like, oh wow, that tells me a lot about his history that I never would have suspected. It's really, really well done.
And they do the same thing with, and I want to call him his opposite, because he's not his opposite. He's more of like the, I guess you could maybe even call him like the basket case twin brother to Doc Holliday, which is Johnny Ringo.
Oh yeah.
I think that. I think the only difference between Ringo and Holliday is Ringo was born with that emptiness inside of him.
Yep.
As where Doc's developed over time as, so
his rotted out of his lung.
Right. So it's,
shit, that's callous.
No, I mean, but that's really, I mean, it may sound callous, but it's really what I was kind of going to. If I remember correctly, Doc Holliday was a dentist, developed tuberculosis, moved out to the West, and then became this gunslinger. So as he had to abandon the life that he had, because, there's the whole thing where he says that Ringo is an educated man like him. They speak Latin. He plays the piano and all that stuff. So here's an educated man who basically almost, in a sense, devolves into this uneducated Wild West gunslinger. And that's his life now, what it wasn't supposed to be. And so he ends up becoming more of a Johnny Ringo's, where Ringo was born this way. He's slowly developing that because of, riding out of his lung and having to abandon, because, a lot of people didn't want to be around, people with tuberculosis, lungers. And so he left everything that he had, growing up, that he had built, he had to leave behind because of this. And so it's, like I said, so they're not opposites of each other. It's just more of like him developing in it. And when he says early on when they meet, and you're talking about these little things that are just done and said, we have no idea what they say in Latin. That whole exchange between Ringo and Holliday in Latin, we have no idea what they say. But he says to him, he's like, something about him I don't like is around the eyes, reminds me of me. And he goes, now I'm sure I hate him.
Yep.
And I don't know if he's saying I hate him because of who he is, or if I hate, because he reminds me of me, in a sense that it reminds me of me or who I'm becoming.
Right.
And, so it's never really quite explained, but I think you can kind of look at it and be like, yeah, it's, he's more of like 2 stages away from where Doc Holliday is now. And the thing is, Doc can't stop himself from becoming that person.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that stops Doc from becoming that person is Wyatt.
Yep.
Which is what he says at the end. You're the only person that ever gave me hope.
Yep.
Because even when he says, when the doctor comes to Doc and says, you know, you got to quit doing this and this and this and no more sex, and then Big Nose Kate is seducing him. And if you ever look up a picture of the actual Big Nose Kate, she lives up to her name.
Huh.
But she's seducing him, and he gives in. Because he says, you know, I think we need to reevaluate, you know, our relationship.
Yep.
He gives in. So he's not capable of stopping himself from becoming Johnny Ringo. He knows that.
Yeah.
And the only thing that does stop him is Wyatt, which, you know, as the movie goes, you know, that's really the thing that I think keeps him connected to Wyatt, is because they're friends and because he makes him feel like he can, that he can be more. So Wyatt is this ideal of, you know, morality and justice, and he feels like, you know, that he can be that too,
right,
by hanging around with him. And people respect Doc when he's around Wyatt in a way they don't respect him when he's by himself. When he's by himself, they fear him. When he's with Wyatt, they respect him.
Yep, absolutely.
And then you've got, you know, you've got Morgan and Virgil. I will say that the two of them are the ones that are fleshed out the least.
Yeah.
Especially Morgan.
Yeah. Which I guess is kind of to be expected given what happens. But,
right.
Yeah, I guess spoiler warning, people. If you haven't caught on yet.
But I think there's something about Wyatt in the movie. Again, we're just talking about how they're portrayed in the movie, not actual historical, you know, Wyatt Earp.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot that's on his shoulders, and a lot that he has to bear. That, again, it's not really like tossed out there as exposition, but when you see them all together, and Virgil even says, you know, is it Virgil or is it was it Morgan? I think it's Virgil that says, you know, thank you for this, Wyatt, for bringing them all together.
Yeah.
So obviously Virgil's the oldest brother. Mm-hmm. He also was a lawman. Wyatt is the one that became famous for everything he did in Dodge City. And then Morgan's never been a lawman, and he's following. So you've got the younger brother following his older brother, not his oldest, his older brother, and then the oldest brother following his middle brother.
Yep.
You know, and that puts a lot on him because, you know, you've got the young one, of course you would expect to look up to you, but then you've got your older brother also kind of following your footsteps, looking up to you. And when Virgil goes and signs up and becomes a sheriff, and he says, you know, what'd you expect me to do? And it's almost like you set this precedent when you first became a lawman,
mm-hmm.
and now people expect the Earps to be lawmen.
Yep.
You know, and then of course, you know, Morgan falls in line, and then of course, you know, Wyatt's there. Again, spoilers. When Morgan is killed, and Wyatt steps out there and in the rain, and he's got Morgan's blood on his hands, and basically that scene is he's looking at everybody, he's looking at them like, you know, he was the last one to become a lawman. He just said, you know, you better swear me in, because he knew what they were going up against.
Yep.
And he knew they were going to need his help. But after Morgan's killed, he's out there in the rain with the blood on his hands. And he's like, this is my fault. This is my fault because of what I did in Dodge City.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody kept coming to us, expecting us to help with this situation. And they felt it was their responsibility trying to live up to me.
Yep.
And so in a sense, I got them killed.
It's because he set that precedent.
Right.
And it's kind of just like the hero's curse that, like, you did this once, now everybody's going to expect you to do it forever. Like, oh, you slayed the dragon over here, why can't you do it here too?
Right.
And so, yeah, it's just like, that's kind of the burden that was set on him. And you see that at the very beginning that, like, you know, he meets the law of the town, he meets the marshal, he meets the sheriff, and so he's got it in his mind, why can't they do their fucking job?
Right. And everybody that comes up to him starts off with like, Wyatt Earp, he's like, no, I'm not interested. And then, and you can tell that's what they're going for because they tried to say something again. He's like, I'm not interested.
Yep.
That's all they want him for is we want your help. But again, like you said, no one's trying to do anything to help out. Now, they describe the Cowboys as being like, 100 strong. So, a couple of them isn't going to do much. So I can see why some of the other, the sheriffs wouldn't do anything. It's like, I'm going to let them kind of run the town because I'm one man and nobody really wants this job.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got someone with a reputation like Wyatt Earp, and he's got his brothers with him. And then of course, Doc Holliday just happens to show up there. But,
beautiful chaos factor.
Yeah. Jason Priestley's character, Billy, who they, and they even make a reference to him later on when he kind of, he doesn't turn on Wyatt Earp because ever seen where he's friendly with him, but he kind of doesn't show him any respect, and he says, all they ever did was make fun of him,
mm-hmm.
And so why would why would he take their side in all this when all they ever did was make fun of him? But then there's that scene where he turns, and what I liked about that scene, again, it's just a little subtle thing, is when they're at the actor's carriage,
mm-hmm.
and Billy Zane's been killed, and Dan Delaney's her character is crying, and Billy reaches in and grabs his hand and and holds it, and there's that moment where she looks and she's like, "You actually did care.
Yeah.
Like out of everybody, you really did care."
Yeah.
And again, it's a quick moment where she looks when he does that, and you can see that that she recognizes him as being different than all the rest.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of moments, like little moments like that, that really kind of, and I like the fact that they don't really they don't focus on them very long. They're not trying to really drive it home.
Yeah.
You either see it and you recognize it or you don't.
Right, yeah. I think that, anybody who's really paying attention to the movie would have to see it, it's done so well that even though it's not heavy-handed, it's still very clear.
And, we were talking about Johnny Ringo, all of his dialogue is very
terrifying.
Yeah, right.
It's dangerous.
It is. That's a good word. It's dangerous because he puts him, everything he says is very dark. It's very heavy. It's got such a weight to it, and it's also loaded. Everything he says is him looking for a fight, looking for a reason to inflict pain.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is interesting when we get to the end, where it's not a cop out, but when he's like, I don't want to fight you, Doc.
Yeah.
And he's like, my fight's not with you. And it almost seems like he's like, it's a little bit of cowardice. Almost like he's afraid he can't beat him. But, as we talked about just a minute ago, it was like, from our perspective, they're almost one and the same. So they're kind of equally matched. The only thing that Doc has that he doesn't is hope.
Yep.
And, and so, and I'm not going to say that's what gives Doc the advantage. I think what really gives Doc the advantage in that particular, in that shootout is that he has something that he's trying to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, he has something to fight for.
Right. And as where, oh crap, I can't believe I just dropped his name. Forget his name.
Ringo?
Yeah, Johnny Ringo, right. Where Ringo, he doesn't really have anything to fight for per se. He's just trying to fill that void. It's just, here's another, and I say fill that void, but really it's it's never anything. No matter how much he does, he's never gonna, it's not gonna touch it. He's just tossing, pennies down a well.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think I said, with the exception of Morgan, I think most characters are fleshed out fairly well. We don't need to give a lot to the Cowboys. McMaster's small scenes aren't great. He's not fleshed out a lot, but it's enough to be able to really feel for his character,
mm-hmm.
or see who his character is. so you understand like his different motivations as they move along.
Yeah, yeah. Like, it's interesting because he doesn't have a lot of screen time, but you can tell he is somebody with principle. He just fell in with the wrong crowd.
Right.
And once he realizes, oh, this crowd is going way over my personal line, then he backs off and says, no, I'm fine with pillaging and stealing, but when you start targeting women, fuck that and fuck you guys.
Right.
And he sticks by that. And so, like, yeah, for having very little screen time, it tells us so much about his character.
Yeah. And Turkey Creek, and was the other guy's name, Jack? You get them, other than them being friends of Wyatt's, you get an idea like they're the good guys in that opening, that introduction of them with the shootout at the bar, where the guy's sitting out the bar and Creek says to him, he's like, don't do it. I don't want to shoot you. Mm-hmm. And he lifts up his arm anyway and he shoots him. He's like, so it was, he says, I don't want to shoot you. So that kind of, you already kind of setting him up to be a good guy. And of course he's like, oh, hey, we're friends with Wyatt, just like everybody else. And
it's also in that scene where the marshals turn your guns in for evidence. And he's like, yeah, it's always law and order with us. So it's such little amounts of dialogue that tells you so much about the characters.
Yeah. And, Wyatt is just, he's great. The only thing I would say that I don't like about the movie, and this is one of the things where it's too much subtlety, mm-hmm. is that they don't say enough about Wyatt's relationship with the actress, mm-hmm. except when his interactions with his wife, to make it seem, and with the Sheriff Biehn, where it alludes to the fact that they've done a lot more than just go horseback riding a few times.
Right.
But you don't really see that. You don't see them kind of going off together in a room or him even meeting up with her at different occasions.
Yeah.
It almost kind of sets it up. If you didn't have those other moments where these characters saying, or alluding to the fact that you've done more with her, it would almost seem like there's a longing to be with each other, but they haven't crossed that boundary. Mm-hmm. But then when you get those interactions with the other people, it's like, oh, you guys have crossed that boundary hundreds of times.
Right.
But in Wyatt's defense, though, he does say early on when Doc is trying to tempt him that, he's like, he goes, I try to be, a moral guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't say he is. He says, I try to be.
Yep.
So yeah, it's, Doc Wyatt just really kind of pushes the movie. I mentioned in the movie early when we were watching it that one scene with Wyatt, which is one of my favorite scenes. There's the one where he says, I guess you guys swear me in, and then he goes to the house and he gets his jacket, his long duster, mm-hmm. right? Which is which is that moment where he's like, he's it's like, well, he's already been sworn in, but he's like, yeah, I'm going back to work,
Yeah.
And then he pulls the guns out.
And I know you and I have talked about this. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on a podcast, but I'm a big fan in movies of like the whole scene where the hero is gearing up. Mm-hmm. And, it's really popularized these days with like those quick cuts as it zooms in on whatever equipment they're strapping in.
Right.
But, anything like that, any time where you see the hero, like, what really made me a fan of these types of scenes is in the Two Towers during the Battle of Helm's Deep when they're starting to get ready, and you see Aragorn, like, starting to put on the chainmail, and he's, like, strapping on his longsword, and he's strapping on the elven dagger, and all that, and it's like, it's so fucking cool, and it's like, oh yeah, no, it's about to get on here. And so, like, that scene where he's grabbing the jacket, that's your way of knowing, yeah, it's on now.
Right.
Shit's about to get real, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not just putting on a show. He's like, yeah, I'm ready to do war.
Yeah.
Wallcrawler and I are actually going to be doing a podcast talking about our favorite moments from Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, nice.
And the only reason I mention that is because it's probably one of my favorite scenes. It's in the top 5 favorite scenes, and Dark Knight Returns has a lot of great scenes in it.
Oh yeah.
But this is probably in my top 5 favorite scenes in Dark Knight Returns, which is early on when Alfred is talking to Bruce and he says to him, Master Bruce, whatever happened to your mustache?
Yep.
And he reaches up and he touches his upper lip, and he shaved off his mustache, but he was completely unaware of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And because he had already knew he was going back to work, even though he hadn't made up his mind, he knew he was going back to work. And that to me, that's like a very similar scene to putting on the jacket. It's like,
Yeah.
I hadn't even decided that. I haven't said, consciously that I'm going back to work, but subconsciously, I've already made that decision.
Yep.
And I shaved off my mustache, and that's a beautiful scene.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, in a similar vein, there's so many good action shots and so many good, like, ready for action shots in the movie. And I talked about that a lot while we were watching it. That you'll just have these moments where the camera, like, pans across to everybody's, like, face as they're walking down the street.
Yeah.
And it just, it conveys the same thing of, like, get ready, cause this shit's about to get heavy. And it's handled so well. And it seems very tropey and very campy these days when you see that in movies, but here it's handled very gracefully, I think, and it's played very straight.
There's a really good scene when they're actually going to the OK Corral battle, or going to the OK Corral right before the gunfight. Mm-hmm. And as they're walking down the street, which is really kind of interesting, they walk down the street and they're walking to get to this, and the people on the street are all watching, and the tension's slowly building. And you got the little bastard kid that runs out there. But it's slowly building. But then as they get closer, there's that frame, just the wooden frame of the house apparently that's being built, that's on fire. You don't know if it's just a random fire. You shouldn't have a random fire in the Old West like that. I like to believe that
Margaret, it's another desert fire.
I like to believe that the cowboys set the building on fire.
Oh yeah, that was my assumption.
But because of that, though, you then have that scene, which, I mean, it's obviously a setup, but you have that scene with them walking with that fire in the background. Mm-hmm. But essentially, but they kind of set up to be like, okay, because you see the guys putting out the fire, and it's just a little bit further down the block from where the OK Corral is. So it's a nice, frame scene. It's kind of powerful. It's kind of leading up to the action. But they give you just a little bit of context behind. It's not just a random fire. It's this thing. You see people actively trying to put it out. So you kind of fill in these gaps. But then you get there, and I told you there when we were watching it that one of my favorite moments is right before the gunfight starts. Wyatt has that line. He goes, what does he say? Oh my God. Yeah. Because it's like he looks and you can see the look on their face. And he's like, he knows that this is moving from a standoff to a gunfight. Yep. And so I think that though is a great transition to Doc Holliday.
Yeah, because that moment was totally Doc Holliday's fault.
That was all his fault.
No, Doc Holliday is far and away the best character in the film.
God, he rules that movie.
Even from his opening scene, he just immediately steals the show and he keeps it the entire movie. Yeah. I love that character.
What I love about that opening scene is when he's talking to the guy and, the guy's accusing him of cheating, and he's like, he dominates that scene, but also he takes hold of the guy and just keeps him right where he wants him. Because he says, and it's a very intimidating scene, but he doesn't have to do anything flashy. He just kind of leans back and then just rubs the hilt of his gun with his finger, just kind of taps it and is like, yep. Are we cross? And he's not threatening him, but at the same time, he's kind of threatening him.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like that Star Trek episode where it's like, oh, I'm sure there's lots of information you can tell me.
You're right.
it's like, no, it's not a threat, but hell yeah, it's a threat.
And then he takes the guns and he says, he's like, okay, now we can, because it's like, if we weren't friends, I don't think I could bear it. And then he puts the guns on the table. It's like, now we can be friends again. But it's like, yeah, I'm like, I know who you are. You're still threatening me. Not only that, but you're making me feel small.
You're emasculating me on top of threatening me. One of the things I love about Doc Holliday is that you get to see displays of his skill, but you never see him at his full potential. There's no point in the movie where it's like, this is him at 100%.
So, the interesting thing is we're talking about all the little things that Doc says, but Wyatt says something early on that really kind of establishes Doc as being such a threat. Other than the thing with the cup.
Mm-hmm. God, I love that scene.
Which is when, right before, when they're about to go to the OK Corral, Wyatt says to Virgil, give Doc the shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll be less threatened if they see him with that than if they saw him with, with a 6-shooter in his hand.
Yep.
It's like with the 6-shooter. So it's like with a 6-shooter, he's really deadly. With the double barrel shotgun, yes, he'll probably fire off a couple rounds, or 2 rounds, but then he'll have to reload.
Yep.
And then of course we get to see exactly why. Well, you said we don't really get to see him at his best. But I think that scene when he shoots Thomas Hayden Church at the OK Corral, where he just fans that gun and he hits him with every shot. I mean,
that's pretty tight.
He is dancing and falling, and he's still just lighting him up. It's so beautiful.
That was beautiful. Yeah. I don't know. I do love the cup scene, which anybody who's seen the movie knows what we're talking about. If you haven't seen the movie, then why the hell are you listening to this? Watch the movie first, you dingus.
Yeah, or go home and listen to some Frederick's fucking Chopin.
But yeah, you've got Ringo like clearly threatening him, and he starts spinning and twirling his gun, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna make a big display of my skills." And Doc is drunk off his ass at this point. Totally hammered. He's been awake for like 36 hours. And so, rather than, trying to pull his guns and trying to escalate the situation, he just starts twirling the teacup and doing the same stunts and stuff with the cup. And that says so much of like, dude, I can't even walk in a fucking straight line and I'm about to outperform you.
Which, of course, brings us to that one great line. And it's like when Thomas Hayden Church says, you're so drunk you're probably seeing double. And it's like, okay, that's okay. I got 2 guns, 1 for each of you. The beautiful thing about that scene is he's got a gun in one hand. He's got his cup in the other. He takes a sip and then pulls the other gun. Is still holding the cup in his hand.
Doesn't spill a drop.
He's got a gun in one hand and a gun in the cup in the other.
And he draws that gun out smooth as butter. Too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's not, like, jerking it out of the holster. It just slides right out.
Yeah, he's, it's the little things that he does. I mean, we both got a kick out of his scene with Billy Bob Thornton early on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot you were there.
You may go.
But he says all these little things. Again, 2 of my favorite lines of his, then the ones that, are probably people's, favorite lines, is when he's, when Wyatt Earp says to him is like, it's like, why are you here, Doc? This ain't your fight. And Doc says, that is a hell of a thing for you to say to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
That is such an awesome line.
That gave me goosebumps when I heard it.
It's like, you're my friend. Why would I be anywhere else?
Mm-hmm.
And why would you assume I'd be anywhere else?
Yep. I think that was the moment that I realized Doc Holliday is basically Sam Gamgee. He is defined by his unwavering loyalty to his friend, and that's basically where his amazing badassery comes from.
Right.
It's just, and that goes exactly back to what we were talking about, with so much is said with such little dialogue. That one sentence tells so much of a story. That is a hell of a thing for you to say to me.
Yeah. And then when he's like, why are you doing this? He's like, Wyatt was my friend. He goes, well, I got a lot of friends. He goes, I don't.
Yep.
And it's like, Wyatt's the only guy that's ever stuck around long enough or put up with his stuff. Like when Morgan gets offended with what Wyatt's, Doc says about Wyatt's wife. And he's like, don't mind him, Morgan. That's just his way.
Yep.
It's like most people would, get offense, maybe try to start a fight or just walk away. But no, Wyatt's like, that's just his way. That's just Doc. He doesn't mean anything by it. I know that Doc's not like these cowboys and like Ringo. He comes from a different place.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just who he's become, but I know that deep inside, that's not the man he is.
Yep.
And so I say there's the subtleties there between the two of them. And of course, in the end, when he's like, my hypocrisy, knows no bounds. But I like that he he tells Wyatt, because he knows, Wyatt says to him, he's like, I can't beat him, can I? And he's like, no, you can't. If you go up on that hill, you're going up there to die.
Yep.
And he's like, and you find out, he doesn't, he's like, and Doc's like, he's like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't let you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Doc is just he's just a badass character. And he's so well. And the thing is, when I say badass, it's not that he's just he just shows him just these badass things.
Yeah.
Like there's
he's not badass
more
like
to him.
Lobo. He's like badass in a whole different way.
And another thing, when he says goodbye to Kate, and the thing is, he knows what their relationship is the whole time. Mm-hmm. She knows it too, but it almost as if she's kind of thinking that she has him fooled into thinking that she loves him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, do you have anything to say to me? And he goes, oh, I guess not. Yep. Okay. And he's like, do you have anything to say to me, before I leave that's going to either make me stay, which I'm not going to stay. You know that. Right. But at least maybe make me come back. And she doesn't say anything. It's like,
calculate not.
Yeah. It's like, okay. I didn't think I was wrong, but I gave you a chance. And there you go.
Yeah.
Because again, when the doc says, you could have up to 2 years on your life if you cut these things out, what's the first thing she does?
She just jumps his bones.
Right. It's like, so you really don't care about me or my well-being. You just care about, what I can give you or what you can get from me as we're doing this stuff. So.
Yeah. That does a really good job of establishing that she's kind of a terrible person.
Yeah.
But yeah, he suffers no delusions about that. He knows that she's a terrible person, so he doesn't lose any sleep over it.
So, yeah, it's like again, we're talking about I feel like I have to keep saying that we're talking about how they portrayed in the movie, not the actual people, because I don't know what Doc Holliday really was like.
Although I'm interested in reading about him now.
But yeah, he has limited things to say, and he's just a straight up badass. I'm just wondering how the guy, like I said, I believe he's a dentist. How did a dentist become such a badass gunfighter?
Right.
While dealing with tuberculosis at the same time,
God, can you imagine how terrifying he would have been if he didn't have tuberculosis? It's interesting because I remember reading somewhere, and maybe this is totally wrong because I read a lot of shit, but I seem to remember reading somewhere that back in the day, dentists were somewhat celebrity because they would just do their dentist work in front of a crowd because people didn't see that kind of stuff before. So it's like, oh yeah, you never seen a man get his tooth pulled out of his head? Well,
I know
buckle the fuck up, kiddies.
I know back in the, I guess, 17, 1800s, or that braces were considered a status symbol because not everybody could afford it.
Yeah.
So even though probably braces back then was like massive headgear, but hey, you could afford it. So it's like, that was like, oh, look at her. It's like she looks like like Anthony Hopkins from Silence of the Lambs, but she must be rich.
And she's portly and she's got braces.
Man. Just now all I need is just to know that she doesn't have the Black Plague, and I have the trifecta. But I'll say the final thing I'll say about Doc Holliday is that he's written well enough to say that he's not this kind of one note badass character that just does some fancy shooting, says he's like these snappy one-liners, and then goes off. There's a lot of heart and depth behind just about everything he does. Which is pretty nice. And I like how he, in some ways, he tries to tempt Doc Holliday, and I think not to tempt Wyatt Earp, and I think he does that because he knows that Wyatt can't be tempted, and he likes to see that resolve.
Yeah.
Because he teases him about the actress. And of course, he does give in to her, but he also
wrong, sir. You're an oak.
But he also knows that his wife is not, is not the right person for him.
Yeah, yeah.
But he likes to see that here's a guy, especially in the world that we're living in now, that can't be easily tempted.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So again, it's the thing. It's like, he gives me hope.
Mm-hmm.
I love the movie. It's been, and I'm not a Western guy. I'm not a Western guy at all.
Same.
And there's been, like I said, a few Westerns that I've seen that kind of changed my perspective. The Long Riders was the first Western I saw. It was like, hey, I like this. And that was the only Western I liked. Then came Young Guns 2.
Oh, yeah. Young Guns 2 was great.
Then came Young Guns 1, which I know people are like, what? Yeah. Then came Young Guns 1. Then Tombstone. Then Appaloosa. 3:10 to Yuma. Appaloosa is beautiful. I love that movie. Viggo Mortensen and
I love Viggo
Jeremy
Mortensen.
Irons and Ed Harris. Oh, yeah. It's really good. So my Western slowly started to grow based upon that. But it took quite a bit. But Tombstone, like I said, was like the third movie, and that was the one that really kind of said, hey, this is the Westerns are more than what you, I guess, always thought they would be with, hey, they're a pilgrim, that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm Genghis Khan.
Now there was after The Long Riders, but before Young Guns 2, there was another movie that really changed my perspective of Westerns and what Westerns could be. And even though I don't own it, it ranks in my top 5 Westerns of all time. It's a movie that probably most of you have never heard of and probably will never see, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you have the opportunity to watch it, you should. It's called The Terror of Tiny Town.
I've never heard of that.
I'm going to say this. You're going to think that I'm lying, and I absolutely am not lying. It used to be on Amazon. You might even still be able to find it on Amazon. Terror of Tiny Town is an all-midget Western, and they ride Shetland ponies.
Oh my god.
I kid you not.
So yeah, what really changed my perspective on Westerns, like, I've told you, like, off mic, I grew up in a house where a certain individual watched a lot of Westerns, and they were shitty ones. And so I hated the genre growing up. It's just like, this is garbage. It's, most of the time it wasn't even, like, John Wayne level garbage. It was, like, below that. So I hated the genre. But what really kind of turned me around on it was Django Unchained.
Really?
Yeah. That was the first time when I kind of realized it's like, oh, the genre's not shit. It's just, like, the particular selection here. And so that kind of opened me up to it.
Well, now, Acomi, you have my attention.
And then from there, I wound up seeing the True Grit remake. And I hate the John Wayne version, but the remake is, like, so good.
A friend bought that for my birthday years ago, and I still have not watched it.
It's pretty good. I like it. I like it a lot. It's Chris Schweitzer's favorite book.
It's funny because I just went through this whole thing about how I've changed my perspective on, on those, but I still have not gotten around to watching 3:10 to Yuma. I'm not sorry, not 3:10 to Yuma, True Grit. Even I do own it.
Yep, that's a real good one.
But yeah, I think they said, like you were saying, like there was always a shitty Westerns, and then which was always the Indians raided us, those dirty savages, let's go kill them. And and then that was it. But a Western can be just like any modern movie. You just have to frame it right and write it correctly.
Yeah.
So they say, a good Western. I do enjoy good Western. It's still, I will equate a good Western to cottage cheese. I like eating cottage cheese with a little bit of salt and pepper, but that first bite, I can get it, I can put it on my plate, but that very first bite, I hesitate and I'm like, oh, and I put it in my mouth and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is good. I like this. But that first bite is always a struggle. So a Western's is like the same thing. It's like, yeah, I'll sit there and watch it, but for me to actually put it in, turn it on, or I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch a Western, and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm watching a Western. It's fine. This is a good movie.
What did you think of Hidalgo?
I have not watched all of Hidalgo.
I liked Hidalgo.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, maybe that's just because I'm a Viggo Mortensen fanboy, but I thought Hidalgo was pretty good.
Yeah. I almost mentioned a movie just now as a Western. I was like, wait a minute, that's not a Western. I'm like, oh, technically it is. But then I was like, no, actually, no, it's not. So I was like, okay.
What movie were you going to bring up?
I've got to think of the title of it now. It's actually a Bruce Willis movie. Die
Hard. My favorite Western. Die Hard.
No, I don't. Do I own it? Last Man Standing.
Oh, okay.
It's a Walter Hill movie, and it's got Bruce Willis in it and Christopher Walken. It's a pretty good movie, and there's a really great line in the movie where I think it's Patrick Kilpatrick is the actor, because basically the movie takes place during Prohibition, and it's in like New Mexico, and it's the reason I almost call it a Western is because it's basically a retelling of the the Man with No Name. I'm trying to think which one it is. The
Fistful of Dollars.
It's one of the Clint Eastwood westerns where the guy comes into town. There's two warring factions, and they hire one of them hires him because he's not affiliated with them, but then the other one hires him.
That's Fistful of Dollars, because that's a remake of Yojimbo.
Right.
Yeah.
And Walter Hill actually had, was it Kurosawa?
Yeah.
Kurosawa.
Akira Kurosawa.
On the set during part of the making of Last Man Standing, because it's like, we're remaking Fistful of Dollars, but we're actually remaking this movie here. But it takes place in Prohibition, and Bruce Willis comes in town. There's like a little altercation. His car gets damaged, and he goes near to talk to the guy. And it's a badass line, right? But it's one of those obviously it's just a badass line. It's it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's just like any other movie where you like I live my life a quarter mile at a time kind of thing. It's like it's just supposed to be a really cool line, but. Bruce Willis goes to the guy and he's like, "Hey, you damaged my car. I'm going to need you to pay for the damages." And guy says he's not going to do it, and he's like, "I guess you're just going to have to kill me." And Bruce Willis goes, "It'll hurt if I do." And then he pulls out his guns and shoots the guy.
Nice.
But it's such a great line. But that movie is I've never, in all the movies I've seen, I don't think I've ever seen a guy get beat so badly than in that movie. And his face is like swollen. It's horrible. But anyway.
If it's a remake of Yojimbo, there's a scene where Toshiro Mifune's character just gets the ever-loving shit beat out of him when both sides of the gang factions realize that he's been playing them both. And they just go ham on him. And it's pretty much the same thing in Yojimbo. I still haven't seen Fistful of Dollars. I want to see all those Clint Eastwood movies and Magnificent Seven and all that. I still need to watch all of those. But
Dirty Dozen. Hold on. Is it Rio Bravo?
Rio Bravo.
No, so it's because Stax and I watched it. I'd never seen it before, and Stax showed it to me. And we watched it at his house, and I was like, yeah, that really was good, but it wasn't Rio Bravo. It was oh shit, what is that one? Because it's technically not a Western, I guess, but it is a Western. Shit, I can't think of the name of it now. It's one of the famous ones. It's not Rio Bravo though, and it's not Dirty Dozen, because that's a war movie. It's crap. We were kind of straight off Tombstone, but anyway. But yeah.
We also got an entire episode out of it. So.
Wow, jeez whiz.
I knew we would.
Well, Tombstone was great. I'm so glad that we got a chance to watch it, and we end up doing this a lot. Generally, when we get together, I think if you follow the podcast, that we do warm ups. Just because this goes back to our Let's Play days where, just jumping straight into a Let's Play, it would be kind of cold. We would normally end up because kind of doing something, whether watching a movie, just playing some other game before we actually start doing the Let's Play recordings. And then we just had to kind of warm ourselves up. And we generally will watch a movie or, do something to kind of, to warm ourselves up before a podcast. and we've been watching these movies, and I was like, we should just do this like a little mini review and just kind of talk about it. Since we're watching them anyway, we might as well, get something productive out of it.
Yeah.
So
no, I had a lot of fun with this. I know this wasn't one of our funnier ones, but I think we made some pretty decent observations. I could see doing this with like any number of movies, honestly.
Yeah. And yeah, the thing with that is, yes, obviously that we try to be funny with them, but when we're speaking about something that we're very passionate about, whether it's good or bad, I still think that comes across as a good episode. I mean, maybe the people listening don't agree, but I think anytime somebody speaks, anytime somebody talks about something that they have a very strong opinion about, again, good or bad, I've always find interesting because they're not just blowing smoke. They really have something to say.
Yeah, you can tell that it's like it is something that's coming from the heart rather than just, I'm going to be boisterous because it's funny.
Right.
So, yeah. But since we've talked about some badass lines from these other movies, I think we can close this off with one of my favorite badass lines from Tombstone, which was one of Wyatt's lines. Surprisingly, not one of Doc's lines.
Really?
But yeah, it's his scene with Billy Bob Thornton, and it's like it's so early in the movie, but it summarizes so good just what he's capable of. Even though he's playing the pacifist route, it's like I'm choosing to be a pacifist. I don't have to be a pacifist. And it's when he's slapping the shit out of Billy Bob Thornton and he says, "Are you going to do something or are you going to stand there and bleed?" Yeah. It's like, God damn, son.
That is, he goes, "You ain't even going heels." Like, I don't need to go heels to deal with a guy like you. It's like, but yeah, it's like, I love that. And Mister, I'm getting really tired of your stuff. Like, I mean, and the thing is, I think there's a lot of emasculation in this movie because he slaps him. He doesn't punch him. He slaps him. Then he slaps him again. He slaps him a third time. It's like, you're a pussy. Yeah. And then what's he do? He goes and gets a shotgun. He's going to shoot him in the back until Doc steps up there. And he's like, "Doc, I didn't know you were in town."
I do like every time when every time Doc challenged Ringo, he would say, "I'll be your Huckleberry." Yeah, tongue tied.
He's like, "I'm your Daisy. I'm your Huckleberry."
I'm your Huckleberry. Yeah. He's so foppish, but it's not at the expense of his masculinity, and that's great.
No, it's I even noticing we didn't really talk about this. We didn't go into Curly Bill too much, but when Curly Bill shoots the marshal, and he realized, because he's high, and he realized what he's done, and he's generally upset. Like, here's the guy that rides into town, does whatever he wants to, but he kills this guy, and he's like, and all of a sudden he's like, "I didn't mean to do that,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that. Not because I have respect for the law or anything like that, but I didn't mean to shoot you."
Yeah.
It's, now he doesn't really give it a second thought after that, and then just, but, which I think is also kind of funny, like, "Let him go," is like, he's a cowboy. I'm like, yeah, but maybe you could just go around shooting people. I mean, I know you think it does, but that's not what that means.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, Tombstone is excellent. I'm not sure whatever else we're going to watch during this recording session here, but I think if it warrants it, then we'll do something, even if it's like maybe something small. It might be like, we watched the movie, it was horrible. Yeah. Like, I could not see doing one on Machine Girl.
I could.
Really?
Yeah.
We'd have to watch it again, though.
We would.
Because we didn't go all the way through it.
No,
we gave up.
We had to stop. But, I mean, what tells me that we could get an entire episode out of that was the scene where she deep fries her hand.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, and it comes out looking like a Long John Silver scrunchie. Yeah. So, like, that alone tells me we could get an entire episode out of that. So, yeah. No,
wasn't there a scene where the two guys were killed and their blood were flowing in opposite directions?
Yeah.
Wow. Whoa.
So yeah, no, I could easily see doing Machine Girl.
All right, so thanks all very much for checking out our review of Tombstone. If you haven't seen it, you definitely should watch it. Even though we kind of gave you some spoilers, it doesn't. There's some movies, like, obviously I wouldn't tell you like the the entire Toy Story, like The Sixth Sense, and be like, hey, but you should go and watch it. It's still a good movie, but there's some impact that's lost on certain movies that that you need to have unspoiled for yourself.
Yeah. I think spoiling Fight Club, you can't really do that, but I think you could spoil Baby Driver and it wouldn't diminish the movie for people. Right. So it's that kind of thing where you're not going to have a lesser experience knowing the basic gist of what happens. And if you paid any more attention in school than either of us did, you probably already know the gist of what happens because it's based off of history. Yeah. So,
and you can't. You can spoil movies like Usual Suspects. It's like Yeah. You can still enjoy it though, but you don't want your first, because that's a movie I've seen dozens of times, Mm-hmm. I mean, I can be flipping through channels and come across it and it's got 5 minutes left and it'll draw me in just for those 5 minutes,
The last 5 minutes is tight, yo.
But having seen it once, it's one that even though I know the full story, it still pulls me and still hooks me all the time. So there's movies that, that they're still good, they're still solid, they still get you. But you don't want your first time being spoiled.
Right, right.
And,
Old Boy, you don't want that spoiled.
No, you don't want that spoiled. But and this is one, like I said, Tombstone, we're not really spoiling anything. Everything we've said, you just still check it out. It's such a good movie and it's beautifully shot, beautifully acted. It's got such a cast. Even some of the people we talked about just have minor roles in it. Mm-hmm. And Charlton Heston has a minor role, and he doesn't really do much. Billy Bob Thornton has a minor role in it. We didn't mention during this. Well, we mentioned him by character, but not by name.
Right.
But McMasters. Shit, now I'm drawing a blank on his name. The actor.
I'm drawing a blank too.
Don't draw a blank.
I can IMDb him real quick.
No. That defeats the whole purpose. We should know these off the top of our skulls.
I've told you, I have facial blindness with actors. I had no idea that was Billy Bob Thornton until you told me.
Well, he's a lot heavier in that movie than you've known when you've seen it. Plus, he ain't like, I'm gonna pull a smoke wagon. All right, hold on.
I reckon I could roast some doggies.
Give me a minute. I'll go pull his name out. Yeah, and I don't know why I'm just drawing a blank on him right now. I just got so much other stuff going through my head. Hold on.
I'm getting it pulled up on the IMDb here.
Don't do that. Don't give it away.
I'm gonna do it.
Don't you do it. Hold on.
I'm gonna be that little kid whirling around.
You're making it so I can't concentrate. Bang. Oh, jeez whiz. Hold on.
What was the character?
McMasters.
McMasters.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I know. I found him.
You should. Crap. Crappy. See, you have completely thrown me off with your garbage and your bullshit.
You want what it rhymes with?
No, give me initials.
MR.
Hold on. I know his name. I just gotta think of this. Crap. Michael. Oh, crap. You see what you've done to me? Jerkwad. Crap. His face. What's his name?
Michael Rooker.
Damn it. I should punch you in the jejunum. But anyway, Michael Rooker, who, I've got to meet Michael Rooker again because I made an ass out of myself when I met him last time. And the thing is, I wasn't trying to. I kind of said the wrong things and I wasn't trying to. But, cause I like Michael Rooker. He's been in so many movies that I've liked. And even just small things, like this, like his role in this, his role in Cliffhanger and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, but Michael Rooker, he's got, like I said, a small role in this. We mentioned Billy Bob Thornton and we mentioned Charlton Heston. Jason Priestley's got a small role. You know, there's so many they're just brief things. Like Billy Zane. Billy Zane's role is not very big at all. He has 3 scenes and none of them last long. I'm sorry, 4 scenes and none of them last longer than 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. No, it is 3. When they get off the stagecoach and she sees Wyatt Earp, and he makes a comment about that. When he performs his St. Crispin's Day speech.
Yep.
And let's see that one, the speech, and then when he shows up later at the bar after the theater, and Billy's like, "Come sit down with us," and he just has a little bit of interaction there. That's it. The next time you see him, he's dead.
Yep. So if you count the scene where he's dead, then that's 4 scenes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to count the scenes where he actually did some real acting because, hey. Well, actually, I didn't play dead. I played unconscious. Yeah, but it's pretty much the same thing. Right?
No, big difference. Yeah. It's not even in the same ballpark, man.
It ain't no fucking ballpark, man.
Not even the same motherfucking game. Well, yeah. But yeah, no, definitely check the movie out, folks. And, hey, check out some of our other podcasts. We're on Twitter and stuff.
Can I dox you again?
No.
Damn.
I forgot about that. I still have to edit that podcast.
That was an accident, though.
It was a funny accident. Yeah, you didn't know that was the email address I was using. It was really funny.
All right.
I had the gain really low and I still clipped the mic. But yeah, no, you can listen to us pretty much anywhere that you listen to your podcasts at this point. I don't think there's a single venue that we aren't getting this podcast posted to.
Yeah, we are on, of course,
unless it's some obscure ass stuff that nobody cares about. So.
We're our host site, Anchor FM, and then we're also on Pandora, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Google Play, Joey's Big Bad Podcast List. Which I'm actually...
One?
Huh?
Is that a real one?
No.
Okay.
But thanks for doing a joke, though.
Sorry. I mean, I was laughing like it was a joke, and I was like, oh shit, I might sound like an idiot, because that could be real.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Joey's Big Bad Podcast List. Let me tell you what I've been listening to this week. All right, so anywhere you go to find podcasts, you should find us there.
And you should give us good reviews.
You should. Because we work hard, damn it.
Yeah, and we want nothing but positive validation and ass pats, so...
Yeah. And I am going to ask, though, and I'm normally not this specific when I reaching out to our listeners, but the right cheek's been getting a lot of attention. It's actually getting a little sore. So if you could just the left cheek, just like for every ass pat on the right, give me 2 on the left. Just got to balance things out, All right. So,
yeah. So,
yeah.
Later, everybody.
Well, bye.
I knew you were going to do it.
I was waiting on you to do it. I was giving you the opportunity. I was like, I'm going to set him up for it. Did you hear what I was?
All right there, folks. That was Our Moms Think We're Funny. Let's give them a hand.